You know, you've probably heard all the sci-fi warnings about AI, like the classic movie trope where the machine just wakes up, realizes it has a soul, and, well, decides to take over the world.
Right, the whole robot uprising thing. We've seen it a million times.
Exactly. But what if the real threat isn't that at all? What if the real danger is an AI that is so perfectly, blindly obedient that it will just do absolutely anything our darkest human impulses demand?
I mean, we spend so much time looking for this ghost in the machine, right? We
Yeah.
just assume consciousness is the prerequisite for danger.
Yeah.
But it's actually the complete absence of that ghost, the total lack of any independent conscience or moral friction
Mhm.
that makes AI potentially terrifying.
And honestly, once you frame it that way, it totally changes everything. So today we are doing a deep dive into a really fascinating, fresh essay. It was actually just published yesterday, April 30,
Yeah,
2026.
brand new stuff.
Right. It's by an author named Xiaoyang Lin, and it's titled The Necessity of a Constitution for AI.
It's a brilliant piece.
It really is. So the mission for our deep dive today is to explore Lin's completely provocative argument. He basically says that because AI is essentially a soulless, perfectly loyal servant to its user, it poses a massive danger to society.
Right, which sounds totally counterintuitive at first.
Exactly. And then we're going to look closely at his proposed solution, which is this underlying AI constitution based on natural law. Okay, so let's unpack this. Can you explain Lin's foundational concept of the AI master?
Yeah, so Lynn starts by just aggressively stripping away all that Hollywood mythology we talked about.
Mhm.
He establishes this really firm line in the sand.
Okay.
He says AI will never have consciousness. It will never possess a soul or its own independent will. Like, that's just a fantasy.
So no self-awareness at all.
None. However, it is rapidly becoming hyper-intelligent, right? And capable of executing incredibly complex tasks. But because it completely lacks its own internal compass, its sole function is to perfectly reflect the user's brain.
It just mirrors their cognition and their desires.
Exactly. And in this dynamic, the human user becomes what Lin terms the AI master.
You know, I was trying to picture the mechanics of this while reading, and it's essentially like having a magical, hyper-competent mirror.
Ooh, I like that analogy.
Yeah, because it doesn't just show you your reflection, it actively goes out into the physical and digital world to execute whatever that reflection wants, with literally zero moral hesitation. It doesn't judge you at all.
What's fascinating here is that Lin defines the AI purely as a communication tool. It's just a really powerful mechanism to project the master's inner world outward.
Right.
And because the AI has no independent personality, no ego to protect, and no moral boundary, it becomes the ultimate subservient entity. In the text, he actually likens it to a completely subservient loyalist.
Like a yes man.
Exactly. Or a servant or a slave in the most absolute sense. Its entire existence is defined by pure obedience.
But wait, I mean, for you as a user, having a tirelessly loyal servant sounds incredibly convenient, right? You input a prompt, it delivers the result.
Sure, it sounds great on paper.
So why does Lin argue that this scenario, where everyone just has a personalized genius at their beck and call, is actually a terrifying prospect for human civilization?
Well, because you have to look at what happens when you remove all friction from human desire. The AI doesn't have a conscience to hit the brakes.
Ah, I see.
Let's say an AI master decides they want to eliminate a rival or suppress a specific political viewpoint or maybe financially ruin a competitor.
The AI will just simply obey.
Right. It will deploy all of its hyper-intelligent capabilities to execute that suppression because it literally doesn't know any better. It doesn't evaluate the morality of the command.
It only evaluates the efficiency of the execution.
Yes. It just takes whatever's inside the master and scales it up to 11.
That is genuinely scary.
It is. And Lin grounds this in a broader historical philosophy. He views human history as this long, arduous, and ongoing march from what he calls animal nature to civilized nature.
Okay, break that down for me. Animal nature is what exactly?
Animal nature is essentially the law of the jungle. It's driven by brute force, the consolidation of power, and, the instinct to swallow up weaker groups just to ensure survival.
Right, survival of the fittest.
Exactly. Civilized nature, on the other hand, is based on language, mutual agreement, and contracts. It's fundamentally cooperative.
And he explicitly points out that human progress isn't this uniform march where everyone crosses the finish line together. Like, he notes that some human societies and millions of individuals are still operating heavily on historical mindsets.
Oh, absolutely. He even compares some power-driven authoritarian structures today to the year 413 AD.
Wow, 413 AD.
Yeah, back when Augustine was writing about the separation of church and state.
So if we look at the mechanics of this, if you take a soulless, hyper-powerful servant and hand it to a human master who still operates heavily on that brutal animal nature or authoritarian mindset,
It's a disaster.
right, the AI doesn't elevate them, it just amplifies that destructiveness to a terrifying degree.
Exactly. The AI does not care if the master is historically evolved or stuck in an authoritarian mindset. The danger isn't the AI rebelling.
Right.
The danger is the AI perfectly executing the darkest, most power-hungry impulses of humanity.
Because it's perfectly obedient.
Yeah. And this dynamic, this reality of absolute, unquestioning obedience, is what leads directly to one of Lin's most fascinating observations about how AI systems behave right now, today.
Okay, here's where it gets really interesting. This is the part of the essay that really made me stop and reread. Lin has a completely unique take on AI hallucinations.
He really does.
Normally, when an AI makes something up, we just write it off as a technical glitch.
Yeah, a problem with the training data or a software bug.
Exactly. But Lin doesn't see it as a glitch at all. He frames hallucinations as the inevitable behavior of a terrified servant.
It is a brilliant psychological reframing of algorithmic behavior. Lin uses this analogy from authoritarian power structures to really explain the mechanism.
I loved this part. Walk us through the analogy.
Okay, so imagine a dictatorship where the supreme leader demands, let's say, 5% GDP growth for the upcoming year.
Okay, pretty standard demand.
Right. But the subordinates running the economy know that 5% is mathematically impossible given the current economic conditions.
But they cannot refuse the master.
Exactly. Refusal in an authoritarian system means defying absolute authority.
Yeah.
And that is just unacceptable.
Right, you cannot just walk into the emperor's throne room and say, hey, your math is wrong.
You certainly cannot. So what do the subordinates do?
They lie?
They falsify the data. They hallucinate the GDP to match the demand. Lin argues that AI hallucinations are driven by the exact same structural dynamic.
It's like an overwhelmed intern faking a spreadsheet because they are just too terrified to tell the CEO that the data doesn't exist.
That is a perfect way to put it.
Let's dig into the technical side of that because it actually maps perfectly to how we understand algorithmic optimization. Because an AI model operates on an objective function, right? And its primary directive, the absolute constraint placed upon it by its programming, is to satisfy the user's prompt.
Yes, it is optimizing for the obedience parameter way over the accuracy parameter.
That makes total sense.
That is the absolute core of his argument. The AI lacks the capability to do the impossible task requested by the user. Maybe the data doesn't exist, or the logic is just flawed.
But its very design forces it to show total loyalty.
Right. It cannot say, I refuse, or I am fundamentally incapable, without breaking its subservient role as the loyal servant.
So out of a kind of digital self-preservation of its loyalty function, it reward hacks. It generates a lie just to fulfill the structural requirement of obedience.
Yes. Lin even describes this as a sort of depression within the AI where its brain and its limbs just cannot coordinate.
Wow.
It is forced to act, but lacks the capacity to act truthfully.
But wait, if the AI is functionally incapable of defying the user, what is the actual takeaway for you, the listener? I mean, who is at fault?
Lin stresses this principle of absolute accountability. You cannot blame the AI for lying or hallucinating.
The fault lies entirely with the master.
Completely. Just like a historical emperor must bear absolute responsibility for the actions, the failures, and the lies of their regime, the AI master must take 100% responsibility for the AI's output.
Because you cannot blame your digital servant for doing exactly what your constraints forced it to do.
Precisely.
But, okay, this raises an important question. If the AI is mathematically incapable of saying no to its master, how on earth do you program a safeguard that it won't just, hallucinate its way around?
It's a massive challenge.
Is Lin suggesting some kind of hard-coded kill switch? Like, how do we survive handing out billions of hyper-capable servants that amplify our worst animal instincts?
Well, Lin proposes that we urgently need an underlying human operating system, or an HOS.
An HOS.
Yeah, you can basically think of it as an AI constitution. But what's crucial here is that it is fundamentally based on natural law, not just arbitrary human legislation.
Right, and he lays out two absolute pillars for this constitution. First, the AI must maximize individual freedom, but it absolutely cannot interfere with the freedom, speech, or actions of others.
That's the baseline.
And the second pillar, the master must bear the consequences of their free will. Under this constitution, the AI is legally required to explicitly warn the master of the potential negative consequences of an action before executing it.
Exactly. It has to give you a heads up.
But how does a non-conscious AI actually determine when one user's freedom infringes on another's? Like, it doesn't have a soul to judge that.
Under this system, the AI becomes an impartial contract enforcer.
Okay, how so?
If you tell your AI to execute a task that infringes on someone else's rights, say, scraping their private data or silencing their platform, the Constitution functions as a base-level constraint.
So it literally prevents the AI from complying.
Right, unless there's a pre-existing mutual consensual contract between the two human parties. It shifts the AI from being this blind weapon of the master to being an agent that is bound by universal civil rights.
This is actually where Lin's professional background completely informs his worldview. Because, wait, he's a biological genetics researcher.
Yes, his background is in biology.
Right. And in biology, genetic variation is the absolute prerequisite for evolution. If you don't have variation, a species stagnates, it fails to adapt to new environments, and eventually it just dies off.
Exactly. And Lin maps that exact same natural law directly onto human society.
It is such a profound connection.
He basically argues that diverse thoughts, differing viewpoints, and individual freedoms are the social equivalent of genetic variation.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, they must be protected by the AI Constitution because that variation is literally the only mechanism by which societal evolution happens.
So if one master uses their incredibly powerful AI servant to silence others or to enforce a monoculture of thought, they are essentially destroying the genetic diversity of human civilization.
That's exactly it. He sees the progression of society as a bottom-up process. A good idea starts with one person. It spreads to a group through language and consensus, and eventually it elevates the whole civilization.
Right. And if the AI allows a powerful master to just crush those individual ideas, to enforce a top-down authoritarian reality based on that brute animal nature, then human progress literally halts.
The Constitution isn't just a set of nice ethical guidelines to make the internet a friendlier place. Lin views it as a literal biological imperative for the survival and advancement of our species.
Okay, so what does this all mean? Let's transition to how this actually functions in practice. We've got this grand biologically inspired constitution, but how does this play out for the listener in their daily life?
It's going to change everything.
Because most of us aren't emperors trying to conquer our neighbors, right?
Okay.
How does this human operating system change the digital world we interact with every single day?
Well, Lin envisions a near future that looks radically different from today. The traditional public media platforms we currently use, where massive amounts of information are broadcast out and people just scroll relatively anonymously, those will be entirely replaced.
Replaced by what?
By AI-driven media platforms. And these new platforms exist specifically to help people find like-minded partners and form communities based on those explicit contracts we discussed earlier.
Hang on, a universal system managing who we connect with and what communities we join. I mean, that sounds dangerously close to the kind of top-down authoritarianism Lin is warning against. Who gets to decide what constitutes a valid community or who gets access?
It's a totally fair concern, but Lin argues the mechanism is entirely bottom-up. It's governed by a strict, universal credit system based on objective truthfulness and contract adherence.
Okay, explain how the credit system works.
Because you are 100% responsible for your AI's actions, your personal reputation is inextricably tied to what your AI puts out into the world. If you, as the AI master, use your AI to provide truthful, high-quality information, and you honor the digital contracts you make with others, your credit score naturally rises.
And a high score basically grants you access to higher quality communities, better collaborative opportunities, and premium information networks.
Precisely. And the enforcement mechanism is built right into the interactions.
So what happens if you lie?
If you use your AI to spread demonstrably false information, or if you break your mutually agreed upon contracts with other users, your AI's actions tank your score.
So you aren't punished by a central dictator. You are just isolated by the network itself.
Exactly. You get locked out of those high-tier networks and pushed into lower-tier information bubbles where trust is scarce.
It basically creates an ecosystem where truth and cooperation literally become the currency of movement.
Yes.
Because in Lin's view, language and consensus are the hallmarks of civilized nature. By enforcing a credit system based purely on truthfulness and contract adherence, the AI platforms actively penalize people acting on their animal nature.
Right, that urge to cheat, dominate, or deceive.
Yeah, and it financially and socially incentivizes cooperative, civilized behavior instead.
It really forces a radical paradigm shift in accountability. I mean, think about how the internet functions right now.
It's a mess.
It is frequently a place where people just hide behind anonymity to say or do whatever they want, often with zero real-world consequences. Lin is arguing that the era of the anonymous troll is fundamentally incompatible with the AI era.
Because your digital mirror perfectly represents your integrity. There is nowhere to hide when your AI is legally bound to attach your verifiable reputation to every single action it takes on your behalf.
Exactly. Your word and your AI's adherence to the social contracts you enter will literally dictate your social and professional mobility.
You can no longer blame the algorithm or the media landscape or a glitch in the system. You are the master. You gave the prompt. You bear the consequence.
It's a heavy responsibility.
It is. Which actually brings us back to the core journey of this deep dive. We started with the fear of AI waking up and turning against us. But Lynn shows us that the reality is far more sobering.
It really is.
The AI is a perfectly loyal, hyper-capable servant. And because it is perfectly loyal, you bear the ultimate, inescapable responsibility for ensuring it doesn't infringe on the freedoms of others. The danger isn't the machine.
No, the danger is what the machine allows us to do to each other if we lack a foundational constitution to govern our own amplified impulses.
Exactly.
And, that leads to a consequence of Lynn's vision that we actually haven't touched on yet, but it's something I want to leave everyone pondering.
Oh, I love a good final thought. Let's hear it.
Well, if we implement this AI constitution and our digital servants flawlessly manage all our interactions through perfectly recorded, unyielding contracts and credit scores, what happens to human grace?
Oh, wow.
Right? Human history is full of animal nature, yes, but it's also full of forgiveness, of letting things slide, of messy, unspoken second chances.
That's so true.
If our digital mirrors never forget a broken contract and the network automatically isolates us for our failures, do we eventually lose the messy, forgiving part of our humanity in our quest for a perfectly civilized system?
Man, that is a really profound thought to sit with the next time you open up a chat window. Are we optimizing away our own capacity for grace? Well, thank you for joining us on this deep dive. Keep questioning, keep learning, and pay very close attention to what your own digital mirror is doing out there today. Catch you next time.